you want to pull the tape, you can pull the tape because we now got video.
And it's as simple as that. And with that, good speaker, I just rest and I hope for a green light.
Thank you, gentlemen. Further debate on the motion? Hearing none, hearing no negative. Gentleman from, good lady from 34.
Gentlemen, will the sponsor yield to a question?
Gentleman from 2 yield to a question.
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Mr. Speaker and good gentlemen, I looked up the code reference where we provide the additional provisions for education for Idaho students. Was there a reason why you didn't adopt the language that's already been previously agreed upon as it relates to parents providing education for their students and incorporating it into the Constitution instead of striking an entire section?
Gentleman from 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady. The intention was to remove compulsory education completely and replace it with a declaration of a natural right that parents have, not that one that state grants.
Dave, 34. Further debate on the motion? Hearing none, good gentleman 16.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate against the resolution.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Friends, there's 4 points that I want to make on this that I think are important. One is related to the Constitution. The second is about attendance. The third is about this institution, this body. And the last is about kids. So I appreciate the gentleman from 2's points on this. What we're doing here is amending the Constitution, and the only place in the Constitution where we talk about compulsory education. We're removing that. Now, to the gentleman from 2's point, compulsory education is found in statute. But what we've done is to open the door for a bad parent to say, I'm following the Constitution in how I'm educating my kids. And that is primary over statute. So that's concern number 1, is what this opens up. Concern number 2 is on the compulsory education. So with this change, and assuming that this trickles down through statute,
this would change the Constitution to enshrine homeschooling freedom forever.
Compulsory education.
And of
That's
course,
an
here
area where
is
I don't
a
wanna
Democrat fighting against this.
And I think it's
worried
important
that there are
we
going to be
not
bad
conflate
parents who
attendance
don't
in
educate
public
their
school with
children
attendance in
without
school.
remembering that the
We
government
already
has
have
a
the most
compelling
choice
state
in the country
interest
terms
in
of where
making sure
parents
that
can
kids
send
are
their
not
kids.
neglected. And so that
And
is
it's
taken
not
care of
about
by many
compelling
other
students
statutes.
to be in public school. It's about compelling students to be in school. Third point related to this institution. So we are, if you read through this carefully, we are removing the legislature's role related to education in this edit that we would make to Section 9 of Article 9. That's our job. That's the biggest budget that we manage. We spend all of this money to fund, to build, to operate schools, and yet we're removing our ability to compel kids to actually be in those schools. And finally, my concern that I've raised before on this, and you don't need to go any further than Tara Westover's book, Educated, about her experience, is that we're opening the door here to bad parents. Now, this is obviously a tiny, tiny percent of parents taking care of their kids and doing the right thing and educate them. But when we pull this language out and we effectively make education an opt-in versus an opt-out, we're opening the door here to bad practices and bad parents and putting kids at risk. So for those reasons, good body, I ask for your no on Joint Resolution 1.
Further debate on the motion? Hearing none, would the good gentleman from 2 care to close debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good body. I respectfully disagree with the good gentleman from 16. Nowhere in the language that we've dealt with is compulsory education. Compulsory education is in Article 9, Section 1. We're not eliminating that. We're not eliminating what I've already addressed. We are not giving parents rights to not teach children. And although there is a correctness here that this deals with compulsory attendance, we're putting it in the Constitution, it has not given any parent the right not to teach their children. And if they don't teach their children, we have laws that deal with that don't violate what the new Article 9 will read. This is just not true. This deals with attendance alone in the public school system. We've seen often people, when it doesn't matter what kind of school choice bill we're dealing with, there's certain organizations that come all out of the woodwork everywhere opposing it. And they do it for one reason and one reason alone, because they know lurking in the background is the ability for the state to come in and tell them where to send their kids. This takes that away. We have, I want to say, hundreds of thousands of parents who are concerned about the education of their kids. We have tens of thousands that do it on their own, and they're doing it well. And for those who don't, they're not doing it today. This doesn't give them anything new. This gives parents the recognition of the natural right that God has given them that cannot be granted by this body. And I just ask for your green light.
Thank you. Debate is closed. Question is, shall House Joint Resolution 1 pass the House?
Representative Dale Hawkins,
machine, members will cast their votes.
Fantastic orator. This might go along party lines with a couple of Democrats. Looks like a few Republicans. I'm sorry, with a couple of Republicans joining Democrats. This does need.
Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. 46 ayes, 23 nay, 1 absent and excused, less than 2/3 of the body having voted in favor of the motion. The House resolution has failed and will be filed in the office of the chief clerk.
Wow.
Good lady from 18.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On a point of order, it was my understanding that the other good lady from 18 had submitted a pair slip.
It needed 47 to pass. It currently only has 46. They're going to look at some pairs here.
Good lady, there's one up here that's scribbled out that's probably no good either because it's got that's different bill on it. Maybe that's the one you're talking about. Gentleman 13.
Mr. Speaker, point of order on that vote. Is it 2/3 of the body present, or is it 2/3 of the entire body?
It's a constitutional amendment, so it's 2/3 of the entire body, 47 votes.
47 votes. Okay, thank you.
In fact, we'll put the House at ease for just a minute. Would the good lady from 18 come up here so I can show you what we have? I don't want anybody thinking anything weird's going on.
All right. Well, they're going to look into the pairing there. When someone's absent, they can find somebody else in the body who is there who will vote opposite them, and then they can pair their votes. It's a procedure that happens quite often when people are out of the. Well, that's disappointing, folks. That was 1 vote shy. Let's look at this. There were a few Republicans voting with the Democrats on this issue. And that would be Cheatham, Clow, Garner, Furriman, Clay Handy, Mickelson, Nelson, Pohanka, Raybould, Weber and Wheeler, Manwaring, and McCann joining the Democrats with minus one Democrat absent there. Yeah, this is disappointing, folks. You see how close it was, 47 to move this along. Man, the education lobby is fat and strong, folks, fat and strong. Well, we'll live to fight another day on that issue. Folks, welcome to the program. Matt Edwards here, Idaho Signal. We took the House live. They're still at ease. They've got a few more bills to go through today. We're also expecting the House to take up House Bill 138, which is the Medicaid expansion reform. That will obviously just take a majority of votes since it's not a constitutional amendment. So we will jump live to that should that pop up on the docket for them to vote as well. Over in the Senate, it is also expected that the mask mandate bill, House Bill 32, will be debated today. So we will pay attention to that. We do have some clips from some committee and some events that have been happening from some committees that happened yesterday or 2 days ago. We've been taking the live shot for a while the last couple of days, and so we're backed up on getting up to speed on some of the other bills that are out there. And it looks like we're going to do that a little bit here right now. Let's go back to the House here. Representative Jordan Redmond is going to present the bill, House Bill 138, and this will deal with adding some guardrails and some stipulations to Medicaid expansion to try to get it back under control. The spending on Medicaid, you saw our signal boost yesterday, is completely out of control. So let's listen to Representative Redmond.
Thank you, good gentleman. Your declaration will be noted in the journal. Gentleman has the floor to present the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 138 is a bill that restores integrity, financial responsibility, and self-sufficiency back into our Medicaid expansion program. One of the first committees I sat on 3 years ago when I was a freshman was a joint health and welfare committee with the Senate and the House, and we were speaking about Medicaid expansion. In that committee as a freshman, I was learning so much about the program and what we were dealing with, and many of the senior members were very concerned about the growth of the program as well as the sustainability long-term of the program. I actually, before I brought this bill this year, I looked back at the Milliman projections when we first passed Medicaid expansion. For this year, fiscal year 2026, the Milliman projections was $510 million. The governor submitted his request for the Medicaid expansion budget this year, which is in all of our legislative budget books, and it was $1.36 billion this year. That's almost $1 billion over the projection of what folks voted on when expansion passed. Medicaid is eating up about 30% of our state budget currently. It's grown significantly since the early 2000s. And one of the issues with that too is on the expansion population, it's not even, the money's not spent wisely. We have an 18.5% improper payment on that $1.36 billion budget. There's far too much waste, there's far too much fraud. And with the expansion population too, we're not talking about pregnant women, we're not talking about kids, we're not talking about disabled people, we're talking about able-bodied adults. I think that at some point too, some of these programs can actually trap folks into thinking this is the long-term solution for their healthcare needs, and that's not what we want to do. What we need to do is stabilize this, add safeguards to this program so that we can have long-term sustainability and we can have accountability in the program. Many folks have said, this is simply a repeal bill, and that's not at all what it is. This is a reform bill to reform the program, to add safeguards so that we can keep the program. If we wanted to run a repeal bill, there's a repeal bill in health and welfare right now that we could all vote on. That's not the intention of this. The intention of this bill is to put accountability back into this program so that we can keep it for the folks that truly need it. This bill does a few different things. One of the issues, as we already talked about, was the improper payment. Again, 18.5% on this expansion population. We're asking our Department of Health and Welfare to get that improper payment down to 5%. Utah's done it, South Dakota's done it. I know that our department can do it. I think there's a lot of faith in our new department director, and I think he's up for the challenge. Another thing with the improper payments is some of those are eligibility issues where we don't know if those folks are eligible or not. So what we want to do is we want to check eligibility twice a year. As we all know, incomes can change, life situations can change, and we need to be verifying that twice a year. Another issue is we don't allow for hospitals just to presume eligibility. Currently, they can just presume eligibility for someone and they can put them on Medicaid. As far as pregnant women go, kids, we're fine with fast tracking them. They can presume eligibility. However, for the able-bodied adult population, we want to verify that they actually are eligible for Medicaid. It also puts more emphasis on the Medicaid populations that we truly want to be there for that safety net program. So it puts a cap on the expansion population of 50,000 or the aggregate number of elderly and disabled folks in the state. we want to give folks choice, right? We want to find a way that we can get them to the private market and get them off of Medicaid expansion and into the private market. Private plans have better access to care, they have better benefits, and most of these folks would qualify for an advanced payment tax credit, which would get their premium down to dollars a month for a significantly better plan. One thing that I think this bill does, and it does an excellent job with, is we had a work requirement in there. And we left it pretty open-ended for the department so that they can.
All right, folks, we are listening to Representative Jordan Redmond. Brian Allman is also here, so we can check in a little bit here with Brian. Yeah, let's keep Redmond up on the screen there. Perfect. So Brian, real quick, the vote earlier on HJR 1 went down by 1 vote. What do you make of it?
Well, it's I mean, it kind of shows where we are, right? That too many Republicans are unwilling to consider that maybe government shouldn't do everything. It's made to seem like this some radical thing, but really it's just restoring what we all know is the natural way of doing things.
Yeah, and it really cuts the line between what people believe the government and what the Constitution should be used for versus what the founders and we believe the Constitution should be used for when it comes to a declaration of rights or a listing of our rights, which is negative rights. The government shall not do something to the people because they have inherent rights. Whereas they find it perfectly okay to say in there that you must compel the Constitution must compel parents to send their kids to school unless they find another means to educate their child. Like they use the Constitution to force you to do stuff or to tell you to do stuff rather than using the Constitution to say that the government has no right to do things that are inherently your own rights. I know I'm butchering it, but that's how it comes across to me.
Right. It's going all the way back to the founding of our country, there was an understanding that states could had more leeway, which is why we have the 10th Amendment. Anything not explicitly enumerated in the U.S. Constitution is reserved to the states and to the people. And so the founders of our state said the government has a compelling interest to create a public school system so that everyone's educated. But over the years, we've seen that, especially in 2025, there are so many more options that we can have. And so the idea that we should have a clause in the Constitution that allows our legislature to compel attendance at public schools, it seems so 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I'm looking at the votes here. Since it failed by 1 vote, every single person who voted against it can be rightfully accused of being the one vote to kill it. And I think this is probably going to be one of those things that comes up in campaigns a year from now.
Yeah, I mean, I see that as well. And the one absent, make no mistake, the one absent was Democrat Representative Brooke Green, and so she would have been in the nay column as well. So I didn't expect Democrats to vote for this. There might have been one maybe years ago that would have voted for it, but today this is just what you expect. And then when you see folks like Representative, Clow and even someone like Clay Handy, these folks who have talked about being, education for education. It boggles the mind. But again, not surprising that it just seems that they're just cozying up to the big ed lobby and to the unions.
Yeah, the unions think that they own our tax dollars and they own our children, and it's frustrating to see Republicans go along with that narrative. Back in the day, we used to have conservative Democrats and liberal Republicans, and well, there's no conservative Democrats anymore.
But there's a lot of liberal Republicans.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Okay, well, that'll live to fight another day. Representative Dory Healy just spoke on the Medicaid expansion reform bill here. Let's see who else steps up to debate.
I saw Representative Healy post on Facebook that she was concerned about all the federal side of it, worried about getting all the waivers that this bill would require. And I don't know, maybe a few months ago that might have been a concern, but with RFK Jr. in charge of Health and Human Services, I think we're going to see a lot more flexibility on things like this, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also believe that, if this can pass, it's gonna cause another wave, across the country, that you can do it. You can do it. You can rein in your Medicaid spending.
Was it I think was it Fred yesterday on this very show that was saying that this is a model legislation that other states, if we were to pass it, other states could start picking it up?
Absolutely. Yeah. Or in fact, for ones that did do Medicaid expansion on their own inside their state, there's some states that just allowed the federal government to take care of it all. So, yeah, he did mention that. Looks like Representative Rod Furness is standing. Let's take a guess of where he's going to be on this bill.
And it's by the trigger bill, the trigger that's in this bill. The 1332 waiver is basically an agreement between the federal government and the state of Idaho and the exchange that allows us to lower the premiums in Idaho. In fact, the 1332 waiver, currently we have a 20% reduction in the premiums in the state of Idaho because of this waiver. The waiver is required in Bill 138 is a 15.
Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of debates on these issues where they really get into the weeds and they pick apart, the one thing that they don't like, and so that's the reason why they're going to vote against it. With a bill like this that does deal with a lot of different moving parts, it's easy to pick those things apart when you don't want the bill out of just principle because you think we should be. Yeah. We should just have universal health care.
The longer you watch the legislature, the longer, the easier it is to see these excuse arguments where they'll find some little quibble about the bill when really, they're philosophically opposed to it. And honestly, it is kind of frustrating to see Republicans who are unwilling to challenge something like this. We've got all these entitlement programs. They're bankrupting our country. They're going to bankrupt our state. But also they create dependence on government instead of helping people be self-sufficient. But a lot of people are swayed by these emotional arguments saying, if you take this away, I'm going to die, poor people are going to die, et cetera, et cetera. And those arguments, if you allow them to go to their full conclusion, it's eventually will just everyone be wards of the state, universal income, universal health care, no freedom, no personal responsibility. Is that the direction we want to go with our society?
Yep, excellent points as always. All right, well, we'll keep tabs on House Bill 138 as they go around the horn here. Let's see who stands up first before we walk out of this. The Senate has, by the way, been debating a bill 1042 that was been amended a few times, but as you know what? We need to switch over to the Senate. House Bill 93. Yeah. I was going to say we can get into this indecent exposure bill dealing with the stuff that happened out in Nampa, but we'll have to work on that another day. House Bill 93. This is the school choice tax credit bill. Folks, with what just happened in the House regarding HJR 1, all eyes now are really on House Bill 93 here, the school choice tax credit bill. This is Senator Lori Den Hartog's bill in the Senate. She's also the assistant majority leader. She is the majority leader now. Yes, she is the majority leader now. So this has leadership's, stamp of approval on it so far. Let's listen in a little bit to her.
The type of system. We have a vibrant school choice ecosystem in the state of Idaho, one that we have worked on for years. We have traditional public schools, we have magnet schools, we have public charter schools, we have private schools, home schools, or some combination thereof. We also have numerous programs that provide our Idaho students with the ability to make choices and to customize their education, including our Advanced Opportunities Program, our open enrollment policies, and several others. Well, how do we pay for all of these programs? How are all of these things taken care of? Well, it's through our tax dollars. And the reason is we collectively pay these dollars to the state, and that's because we value education. We prioritize these programs and these policies. So today, what I'm asking you to consider is to expand access and opportunity in and for that ecosystem. particularly for those who may not have access to it today. In today's world, where and how a student receives their education can be very fluid. Times are changing, they have been changing, and our education system is changing with it. We have learned so much in the last several years about how families want to educate their children, about the opportunities that they are looking for, that the ways that they want to customize and provide for their children have changed, and it's really exciting. So today we're talking about one more avenue. But before we do that, I want to talk about our constitutional obligation to our public education system. By adding this option, we will not walk away from that responsibility. You have a handout on your desk. You have several, I think, that were handed out. But in the packet with my name on the front, if you flip to that first page, you have a document prepared by our Legislative Services Office. In the 10 years that I've served in the Senate, we have doubled our funding for public education. We went from $1.4 billion in 2015 to about $2.8 billion last year, and we're on track to increase that more. At the same time, our student population has increased by 8.7%. Now, we had a lot of work to do. When I arrived in 2015, we were still climbing out of the cuts and the downturn that we had experienced in 08, 09, 10, and 11, and continuing on. So those increases were appropriate. Not only did we double the K-12 public education funding, we last year and in years past have put over $1 billion into public school facilities. Now, this floor may remember that last year in debating House Bill 521, one of my concerns was that the formula in that bill was not fair to our rural schools. And there were many, many, many other things in that bill, and I think we had a few other no votes on that piece of legislation. But outside of that, I have supported every single increase to our public education funding system, and I'm proud to say that I've been a part of that. And we're on track to do more. We're on track to increase teacher pay. We're on track to do more facilities funding, particularly for our rural schools. As we think about what we're going to consider today, I think it's really important to acknowledge that parents look for and choose different options for their kids for a variety of reasons. Also included in your packet is a letter from a mom who started, her name is Alyssa, and she started a school in Post Falls called Wired to Learn. She talks about having 4 kids, 4 boys in particular, and 2, one with or ADHD, and one with dyslexia. And she talks about her journey in that and trying to advocate for her children within the public education system. This mom, she went on to become a certified dyslexia specialist and earned a master's degree in psychology with a focus on learning disabilities, and then decided to open a small school to serve kids like her boys. So I think it's important to consider that while we have these options, not all of them work for all students. And what we're talking about today is not trying to recreate the exact same system that we have. We're trying to do something different, and that's part of why we have considerations of different metrics. A moment before I get into the mechanics, this floor knows, and you guys are probably tired of hearing me say it, but I'll say it again for the benefit of this floor and for the public. My husband and I made a decision over 14 years ago to send our children to a Christian school. That has come with many sacrifices, and it has come with much joy. But part of the reason was we were looking for an alignment that what we taught in our home was also taught in school and was what our kids heard when they joined our family for worship on Sundays. That's not a choice everybody makes. And what I've committed to this body and committed in other settings in the legislature is that this piece of legislation is not for the benefit of me and my children. I've committed to the body before on policy proposals that we've considered that I will not be applying for this if it passes. And I think that's important for this body to know. I'm not here for my kids. I'm here for the other kids of Idaho and the other families who are looking for options and opportunities. So let's briefly talk about the mechanics. So this bill is a refundable tax credit of up to $5,000 per child, or up to
Okay, if you've been watching this program and
per
following
child with
Idaho politics, you
disabilities.
know the details of this bill as Lori Den Hartog gets into it. But her arguments here were succinct and well put. Brian, I'm still a little rocked by the vote on HJR1, so I'm not quite sure where this vote is headed today. Any word on some of these? We saw over the weekend, of course, that President Trump came out and congratulated Brad Little and the legislature for putting forward this particular bill. So I think that might have something to do with perhaps getting a few more supporters on board when you've got the president of the United States behind it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Senator Brian Lenny from Nampa had been questioning some aspects of the bill and has vowed not to support any bill that would regulate homeschoolers. But he's posted the other night that he's had his concerns addressed, and it sounds like he's going to be supporting it. Beyond that, I think you're right. President Trump coming out when he did, I think will flip a couple of votes. Nobody wants, no Republican right now wants to be seen as opposing President Trump's agenda. He's already got the executive order promoting school choice. And now he's got this post on Truth Social directly in favor of this bill. So, I do think that'll flip a few. Maybe some who would vote against if they thought it was going to pass anyway. They just want to register their opposition. Now maybe if it's going to pass anyway, well, I'll vote for it and make sure my constituents know I'm supporting Trump's agenda. I'm supporting school choice. Obviously, this is a contentious issue, and there's a lot of differences of opinion. Voters in North Idaho have a different position than voters in the Treasure Valley than voters in Eastern Idaho. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, it depends on how it's marketed. If we take the Democrat line, this is school vouchers taking money from public schools and giving it to rich people to go to private religious schools. Well, that obviously doesn't sound good. But so it all depends on some of the arguments and some of the rhetoric as well.
Yeah, and again, the assumptions that a lot of these people like to make all the time, that it's only rich people that send their kids to private school, is such an insult to those who sacrifice themselves at home to either homeschool, have a parent stay home and not work if the ability to work was there, to homeschool your children, or to forego, I don't know, vacations or a bigger home or whatever it is, whatever cost it is that you need to save in order to send your child to an alternative school that's not a public school because of your personal beliefs or because you're not satisfied with the schools in your area. There's all sorts of different reasons. So again, these presumptions that on one hand, if parents, if we put something in the Constitution that says education is in control of the parents, that they'll just ignore their children and not teach them. And then on the other hand, it's just rich people who don't send their kids to public schools and send them to private schools. Like I just don't buy these arguments, and look, there's another element in this, Alman, that I want to ask you about, which is, people say, well, how much money do you pay in taxes versus how much you would get back in a refundable tax credit, right? Mm-hmm. If you're getting $5,000 per child, but you don't pay that much in taxes to the state. But the state will spend $10,000, $8,000 to $10,000 educating your child. Where is all that money coming from? It's not just coming from individual taxes. It's coming from corporate taxes and business taxes and all sorts of different fees and things that are out there that go into the general fund that get divvied up throughout all this. So when you think about the fact that our state is growing, we want to attract business, we want to lower corporate and income tax rates so that more businesses come in here. I mean, the benefit of collecting corporate taxes is that it helps fund our schools. And it's not just my money that's going to fund your child going to a private school. It's all of the corporations that have agreed to work here and pay taxes.
Yeah, and if the government can give up to $5,000 in a tax credit to have a child educated in a non-public school or homeschool or whatever, that is definitely a better deal than the $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 that they're paying per student in public schools. So it really is a better return on investment. Down in Arizona, they complain that the school choice program there is a budget buster because it's growing. Well, of course it's growing. It's a popular program. The question is not how much it costs in a vacuum. How much does it cost compared to what it would have cost to educate those children in the public system?
Right.
And yeah, like you said, these taxes are coming from a lot of different places, including, out of staters driving through and buying groceries.
Watch it, Allman. Watch it. Very good. Okay. Well, this is, Senator Den Hartog is still on her opening debate here. I imagine there's going to be debate around the Senate on this. Over in the House, they're still debating the Medicaid expansion reform, H138. So with that, we'll keep tabs on this as they go along. We have a few guests joining us today, but Allman, let us know what you're working on, where you're at. I know you're going to keep tabs on both of this, so people should be watching your Twitter feed, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of doing live tweeting. It's the sort of thing where Senator Den Hartog has already made all these points multiple times, so I kind of don't want to repeat them.
Yeah.
She's just laying it out, answering all the things we've heard in the Senate committee and the House floor and the House committee, and emails and everything else. But yeah, I'll keep tabs on it. Also, remember yesterday we were talking about in JFAC the questions about the governor's office transferring money here and there. I'm following that up too, so I'll try and get something out on that soon. GemStateChronicle.com, at GemStateBrian on Twitter, and as always, every day here on Idaho Signal.
Good. All good stuff. Thank you, Allman. Appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow. All right. Very good. All right, folks, let's take a short break. When we come back, we have Kootenai Journal. Charity Joy is with us to talk through a bill that we highlighted a bit on this program, but it's fairly interesting. It definitely has something to do with media and the news, the old school, the old boys, the old good old boys news network out there. So we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. As we mentioned before the break, we are paying attention to what's happening in the House and Senate. Senator Lori Den Hartog is still presenting House Bill 93. That's the school choice refundable tax credit bill. And then up in the House, it's H138, which is the Medicaid Expansion Reform Act. This, of course, Medicaid expansion came about because of a ballot initiative a number of years ago. It was promised that it was only going to cost maybe $300 million or so, and now this thing has ballooned to projected to be next year $1.36 billion. We went through some of those numbers yesterday with Fred Birnbaum. So that is being debated. Those two bills are being debated on the House right now. which also tells me that we may not be able to have Congressman. I've promoted Kevin Andrews. We're going to have Representative Kevin Andrews come on after the floor has left, but they're still debating. So I don't expect we'll have Kevin today, but maybe we'll get him later this week. But who we do have here, I want to set this up a little bit. There's a House bill out there, House Bill 166, that would I'll let Charity explain it, but I think the broader picture here is that, have you ever wondered how newspapers are still surviving in Idaho when you have all this digital, you have the internet, we have us here, you've got all sorts of different news outlets and everything. You've got X, you've got Facebook, and the way that news moves all around. How is it that newspapers are still surviving? Well, there might be some subsidizing going on. Perhaps, we don't know. But Charity Joy joins us now. She's from the Kootenai Journal, the editor-in-chief, owner, all the big things about Kootenai Journal. Great independent journalist. Charity, it's good to see you. Walk us through here a little bit about House Bill 166 and why it's of interest to you as well.
Well, it's of interest to me because I happen to be a competitor to what they call the papers of record. And really what it does is, back in the day before internet existed, and really before the evolution of how internet exists now, which is quite a bit different than it was even 5 years ago, when the state put in mandates for legal notices, both from public entities and private entities, they required certain statutes be met and certain requirements be met so that there's actually notice going out to the public. And at the time that it was put into place, they wanted the mechanism that would reach the most people. And so they have certain requirements on what makes a paper, a newspaper, the print paper, a paper of record. And that is where all legal notices must go to maintain the legal qualifications for the notice. Well, what was really interesting in committee on this particular bill was when Representative Heather Scott pointed out that less than 4% of adult Idahoans actually get a subscription newspaper in print.
4%?
Lots of access online to stuff, but not in print. And then additionally to that, she pointed out that it's very difficult to read what is published, and that while all of these newspapers do put the legal notices on their websites without a paywall, you have to go to all of the different websites to access it. Their filters are not good. It's hard to actually bring up stuff. And so what this legislation does is it would take all of those legal notices from both public and private, place it on the state comptroller's website with great navigability. I don't think I said that word right, but that's okay. And then it would function the same way as giving proper legal notice for everything. And the state comptroller would not charge public or private entities for this. It would be fully funded by the state. Now, some people have said this grows government. I disagree. When government creates a mandate, which is a mandate to present a legal notice to the public, they are then obligated, in my opinion, to provide the most cost-efficient, the most transparent, and the most accessible to the public way of them meeting that mandate. Well, we're in the 21st century with everybody accessing everything online. I believe Rep. Heather Scott also pointed out that 84% or 85% of Idahoan families have access to the internet in their home. So anyways,
and even more so
passionate about this. So ask me another question.
I was going to say, and even more so, most people have a cell phone too, which also has internet access too, which makes it even
exactly. And that shoots it up even higher.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the term paper of record, because I think before I ever heard or before this bill, I had always assumed that the paper of record was just a term that people would use for like legacy media, like the New York Times is the paper of record.
Actually,
but that's actually a defined term in our statutes.
It is, yes, and there are certain requirements that have to be met. You have to be a weekly publication. You have to be a weekly publication without interruption for a set period of time. And then you have to battle it out with the other newspapers in the area for who can prove they have the most subscribers.
Wow.
No.
Wow. Okay.
Now-
So that's interesting too, because right now, like you said, did you say that only 4% of and that's across Idaho?
That was the stat that Representative Scott presented in committee.
Yeah.
I don't know her reference point for that, but she's usually very accurate when she presents that kind of information.
Sure. So 4% of Idahoans get a paper
Yes.
mailed to their house.
Yes.
We really don't know how many people, make it a daily thing to buy it at the
Right.
donut shop or whatever, but
Right.
those are out there too. That aside, that's probably less.
Now, there
or
was
as
discussion
random.
in the committee about how, this isn't opinion stuff. The newspapers do not, control the information in the public notices. And while that is completely true, they do not print these public notices separate from their editorials or their news. It's all combined into one print publication. So the payments for those, and even classified ads, but that's not what we're talking about. The legal notices, payments for those subsidize the printing costs and the operational costs of placing all of the opinion and the news articles out at the same time.
Yeah. Do we know how much that costs? Do we know how much?
So I
they
know
pay
that
a
it
paper?
costs the state based on the bill sponsors, fiscal note, that it costs a little over $1 million for just the state. That does not count other taxing entities. Look at Kootenai County. We have over 30 taxing entities. All of them have to place public notices. Then this doesn't, what's no one's been talking about really that I can tell is the cost to private. So the state is mandating that private entities pay a separate private entity to post a legal notice. So there's actually more funds being generated for the newspapers from the private people that have to pay than from the public.
Wow. Yeah.
I can tell you personally, I have been contacted by people who want to place legal notices. And when I tell them that it won't suffice for what they want to do, that they will have to go to the paper of record, several have thanked me for the information. Other ones have gotten perturbed because they don't want to fund the particular publication that is the paper of record. Because let's be frank, in Idaho, it's the legacy Marxist-driven agenda. And I mean, we can't get around that. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. So up here in Kootenai County, you got the CDA Press. And would that cover, what's the paper of record in Bonner County? Would it be
I'm not sure. I think it is an extension of the Hagedorn Corporation owns multiple. So
that's a good point.
20 some newspapers that they publish, and I'm sure their papers of record multiple places.
Right. Yeah. And then of course down south, it's Idaho Press or the Idaho Statesman, or do they have to fight it out between the two of them?
I've not checked down there which one is the actual paper of record.
But it can only be one of them, right?
It can only be one in a certain geographical area.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then out east, maybe it's the East Idaho Times or whatever you call
you know
it
what's
there.
nice about this legislation? It doesn't force people to stop using the print. It says they have the option to use the comptroller's database for it. But they can still choose to, if they want to, support that newspaper and print it legally there.
So some of the pushback that I've seen in committee from some good legislators has been the fact that that they're more worried about having these notices published on a government website because then government is controlling the government.
That's ridiculous. Government controls all their transparency. I mean, I don't understand that logic at all. I think it's false. Okay, so you're mentioning a certain representative, Joe Alfieri, said this in committee that he doesn't trust government, and for that purpose he's voting against this. Well, that you have to put some kind of substantiation behind that. Otherwise, you're eroding trust in all government. And I'll go back to the point where the state mandates this. So if you don't trust government, then get rid of the mandate. If you're going to have the mandate, then you're going to have to trust some mechanism for providing that it's done correctly.
Right. And then just, I guess, a little bit of just of my naivete here. What exactly would constitute a public notice? I've seen public notices that say like, so-and-so is doing business as this, or we are having we're doing.
You mean who has to place the public notice?
Yeah. And what is it? And why would we be nefarious if a government,
Okay, so it's, for instance, if you are going to put something on the ballot for a levy, then there's certain statutory requirements for how early you have to tell people about it and how many times you have to tell people about it. Same goes for public meetings. So they have to post an agenda, and it can't alter that agenda. If they do, then they have to renotice it within certain timeframes. So it can be complicated. There are a lot of different statutes that speak to it. It's separate for private than it is for public. It is an important function. I'm not saying get rid of public notices or legal notices. We have to have those when you're doing lawsuits against each other, or when there's an arrest warrant. When there's all sorts of different things where public notice is crucial. It's important. Now, there was another point of negativity on this bill by another representative who happens to be my representative, who I really like. And in committee, I'm like text yelling at him, right? Because he voted against it in committee. And I told him, he argued that there you go, our favorite Vito Barbieri. He's fantastic. He chairs the transportation committee. But he said that it's important to have the archive. Well, while I would agree archives are really great, that is not the purpose of this particular function and the government mandate. It is not a mandate from the government for archives. It is a mandate for immediate and accessible public notices of legal things. So it's actually better to move it to a really well done, accessible, one location website like the comptroller. There was someone else that said, I'd like to see the counties do this. Why do we have to do it at the state level? Well, for one thing, the counties are an extension of the state, right? We have 44 different counties. Why would I want to go to 44 separate websites, which are all different? I don't know if you've been on county websites, but they can be extremely different from each other, and try to dig through everything. That is even less efficient. So if that was an option, if this bill said every county should do this, I would oppose it because it would actually be less effective.
Yeah. Well, this is fascinating. I think, when it comes, the big picture for me is how much money is being sent.
So much money.
I mean, and I'll say forced, like it's being forced to be sent to these papers of record.
It is literally subsidizing them. Yes.
Yeah.
And it puts small people and enterprises like myself at a disadvantage. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What if they change the rule and said you just put it in any paper?
I would still favor the present legislation, the H166.
Okay.
Because what's the purpose of it? That's what we need to remember, what the purpose is of these legal notices. The purpose is not to, a fund. And plus, may I add, how can you be a free and independent press if you can't operate without government funds? That is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But what it does is it segregates the information, it disperses it over multiple platforms, which makes it more difficult for the public to have that notice. So if the goal is to give really quick, accurate information to the public, it just makes sense. I think this is smart.
Yeah. It's
or as Trump would say, common sense, people.
Common sense, people. Yeah, common sense. All right. Well, anything that takes a bite out of the legacy media and their ability to just keep lying to us and spinning the story.
I couldn't agree more.
I'm all for. All right, Charity. Well, let's put up your details. Where can people find you? We got your website up there. Where can people find you and get connected with the Kootenai Journal?
So Kootenai Journal has no payroll. You're welcome. You can access everything without a paywall. You can subscribe to get the printed newspaper, which prints the first Tuesday of every month, mailed directly to you. But it's KootenaiJournal.com. Super easy. If you know how to spell Kootenai, you don't even know how to pronounce it, it's fine. Just spell it right. KootenaiJournal.com.
Fantastic. All right, Charity. Well, good to see you. I want to have you back. I want to talk about the judges situation.
Oh my gosh.
Great article on the judges situation.
Thank you.
So we'll have Alman on too about that. So
thank you and great work.
Yes. Thank you. Same to you. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, very good, folks. Yeah, follow that. Follow it. Very interesting. All that money going, being forced to go to these papers of record, just so that they can continue to spin their narrative and control everything. So that being said, well, does look like we have Representative Andrus in. Representative Andrus, welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us. I'm looking over here. The debate is still going on. Are you going to get in trouble for sneaking out?
I hope not. I talked to Monks as I snuck out and said, "Hey, can I borrow your office because it's right off the floor and to have a little bit of quiet." And then I told a few people when we're getting ready to vote, let me know. So I may have to leave quickly, but I thought I'd sneak on and there we are. Hey,
yeah, there he is.
You'll be able to tell me when to get up there.
That's right. Yeah, we'll give you the big sign once we see that. Once we see
right.
Now who's it? It's Redmond. Once we see Redmond closing, we'll throw you back in there.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining me. Part of the stuff that we do over at Citizens Alliance when I'm off the air on Idaho Signal is to is looking at bills and going into the details and looking at the spending and stuff. And this Doge thing that's going on at the national level is like so exciting, right? Everything that they're uncovering. But you're the chairman of the Ag Committee, and obviously that's a huge industry here in Idaho. And and I wanted to ask you about, there's always these like commissions that are put together that seem so random to somebody who's not a farmer or not into the industry at all. And I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of insight because we came across a bill that I mean, I'm neither for nor against at the moment. I have no idea, but it's it would expand the alfalfa. Help me out, producers. It's the Alfalfa and Clover Seed Commission. So there's a commission for the alfalfa and clover seed. It would expand it to add one more person, but then the bill also raises how much money goes to that commission based on the sale of the seed. Do I have that right? What is a commission, and why do they get money from the farmers?
Fair enough. Great question. There's all sorts of commissions. Some like the Potato Commission is very heavily involved and has a huge budget, and they do promotions. They sponsor the famous Idaho Potato College Football Bowl game and do national ads. This one with the alfalfa and clover seed growers is much smaller. There's very few alfalfa and clover seed growers anymore. There's a lot of alfalfa growers that grow hay, but very few that grow the seed to plant those crops. And so this commission, this bill, the statement of purpose says that it was going to increase the number of people on the commission, but that was an error. It actually just changes the count and has one less grower, and now has somebody from the University of Idaho for their research input that it can give to the group. So yes, it does. This bill, it's coming from them. It increases the amount that they can charge for their commission for, and I don't know offhand what the amount is, but it.
Well, that's what I want to ask you. So the amount, because I know.
Okay.
So the amount right now, I think, was 1/4 cent per 1,000 pounds or something, or per pound. Per pound of clean seed, right? That's how they call it, clean seed. So like ready to go, the seed's ready to go, the final product, 1/4 cent, and it raises it to 1 cent, so it quadruples it. Now, obviously, 1/4 cent, 1 cent, but when you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of seed, that seemed like an awful large jump to quadruple the funding that would go to this commission. Are we trying to make up for something? Is there something that they're planning on doing? Is there a market out there that we need to, like you said, they do the marketing, they try and help the growers, in their business, and I would imagine, help the industry. That's a big jump. Have you ever seen something like that?
It is a very big jump, and not to offend anybody on this commission, but they don't do a lot, and they have not raised that fee for, I can't remember, it might be close to 50 years. We're having the committee hearing tomorrow. I will know more. I'll get data on this tomorrow. But but also, it's just this increase in statute does not mean they're going to take all of this jump all at once. What they do is they have a statutory limit. It's the big maximum they can go, but then in rule they increase it a quarter of a percent or a quarter of a cent at a time, and because it's easier to pass that, so they do that, and then just know that when they get to when they have to change the statute, they go higher than they need, so that they don't have to come back and pass a bill the next time they need it. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So,
and
I don't.
Generally speaking,
I don't know exactly what level they're going to go to in rule, but yeah.
Gotcha. Well, generally speaking, when it does come to something like this, is this something that the seed growers themselves would look at this and go, "Holy cow, no, we don't want this," and they'll show up and tell you to, change it or do something? Or is this kind of like, this is fine? I mean, do you ever see push back and forth when it comes to raising this type of thing for these commissions?
Yeah, good question. So this is coming from the commission themselves, so they want it, the growers want it. But my question is always, okay, do we have a fair representation of the growers being heard at this commission, or is there a bunch of kind of politically averse people in the background that don't know about what's happening at the commission? They're just growers and they just want to be left alone. Would they be upset with this increase? And so I try and get both versions, right? So it's easy to get the politically active people's version, the people that are on the commission that are proposing this. But in this case, this is such a small commission. There's so few growers. In fact, I was told yesterday that one grower produces all of the alfalfa. It produces over 50% of all of the alfalfa seed in the state. Wow. And he wants this.
Could this also be, and this is just my, watching out for the crony stuff that's out there. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the bigger guys like to raise fees to push out the smaller guys. Is that a scenario that might be in play here? Not to just impugn anybody's motives, right?
That's a valid point. I don't think so in this. The barrier to entry to this is the breeding and the honeybee process for this is very intensive, and you've got to be in a very secluded area to grow this seed, and that is the bigger barrier to entry than this
Gotcha.
cost, I would say.
Okay.
But these are good questions that I will ask tomorrow as well. So thank you.
Hey, nice. All right. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you jumping into the weeds and the seed on this. But I also want to ask you, you've been in the legislature for a number of years now. What are your pet projects? What are things that you like to make sure get done or get stopped? I mean, what's on your agenda?
Yeah, I don't have many bills this year. I'm working.
Nope, we lost him. Or was that me? It's everybody. The majority leader said, "You need to get back." You need to get back. Well, here's what's happening in the House. It's House Bill 138 is still going strong, and the minority leader, Ilana Rubel, the Democrat, is arguing probably against this bill, as is what's happening in the Senate. Another Democrat is standing up in the Senate against the school choice credit bill. So we think, it looks like we lost Representative Andrus, but I'll check in with him and see what his priorities are and make sure that he knows we've got his back. So Folks, we've run overtime. We started early. We've run overtime. It's been great having you here. We'll keep tabs on these debates as they continue to go. Watch us online. We'll see you next time. We're out of here. It's a hard out, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Bill, I think it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.